Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to Glory Hunters. I'm here with Glory Hunter Nick. We got a kind of a short show for you today. There's not a lot of stuff going on going into the Euros. Obviously, we just had the big Champions League victory, which we covered on a really great watch-along. I thought it was a really entertaining watch-along. Hope you guys check that out. What's going on with you, Nick? Anything?
Nothing much, really. Just looking forward to Enzo Maresca's time at Chelsea now that he's been appointed the coach.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit, but if you really want to get into details, I would highly check out, we just released a video that Nick did. Your first YouTube video ever?
Yeah, I guess.
Definitely the first one for this one, for a football video. It's very in-depth. If you're a Chelsea fan, check it out, and if you did something wrong, let him know, because that's funny to me. But first, breaking news. I'm blown away by this. I don't even know what to think. Kylian Mbappé announces that he's going to Real Madrid. I was a little ticked off because I saw Zealand. He put shock transfer in the title. I was like, you jerk. I was thinking of that first. I guess he beat me to it. But I really don't know what to add to this. But and I'll be completely honest, I want to put Kylian Mbappé in the title. And that's probably the best we could do.
I mean, it really is shocking. There was so much suspense around who would get him. You know, as a free agent, there was so many different clubs that obviously would have been after him. We've really been asking ourselves who is going to get Mbappé for a while now. So to get this notification today, all of a sudden he's joining Real Madrid was quite exciting, really.
Yeah. How obviously Kylian Mbappé can't hurt your team. How much more lethal does this guarantee? How about this? Does this guarantee them another Champions League next year? I mean, they're definitely going to be more high-powered. There's more firepower here to work with. What do you think?
That's a hard one to answer because you've obviously got Manchester City are always going to be lethal under Pep. Arsenal really on the rise. We don't know what Bayern Munich are going to look like next season. And so you're going to see improvements from those clubs most likely going into next year's Champions League. And yes, Mbappé is a ridiculously good player, and Real Madrid are obviously the champions this year. But I think there might be teething problems there. Where he likes to play is similar to where Vinicius tries to play. And so maybe we see a scenario where they maybe need a year to sort of fully figure out how everything works there with all the players they've got. So I don't know about guaranteed it, but I mean, yeah, they're probably favourites.
It's the safe favorite. Well, another thing too with any of the knockout, one bad game, you find yourself at the end of 3 goals and a 3-goal leg to overcome. Any team would have difficulty doing that. Certainly doesn't hurt his team. There were rumors about him going to England, but I forget, a friend of his says he's not going anywhere that isn't warm. I often wonder if that's one of the reason he left Paris to begin with. It's cooler to live in Spain. Let's be honest. It's warmer. It's the weather's been fantastic. This club is the most decorated club in football history, I guess, right? At the highest level. Is that fair to say?
Well, it depends what you're counting as trophies.
Europe.
I know Rangers and some Al Ahly in Egypt are technically the most successful clubs.
Oh, really?
But as far as Champions League and top 5 league goes, then it's definitely Real Madrid.
They're the Yankees of Europe in a lot of ways, and then they just knocked out another one. Again, I don't really have too much to add. It's certainly interesting. Maybe a better conversation is how PSG handles it. It's difficult for me to care. After their failure with Neymar and Messi, they became the kind of team to hate. I joined in that dog pile. But all the best to him. All great players seem to make a stop over there. I think it suits his style, his sort of image, so to speak, his brand to be over there. I do worry a little bit, like getting benched at the half and going up to see his mom or his grandma. I can't imagine that's going to fly over there. Maybe he's doing that just to be a jerk. Maybe there's reasons I don't know about. But certainly, he's not. This guy does. He doesn't make me as crazy as Robin or even Ronaldo, for that matter. He's not. He really is great. I think the most obnoxious thing he ever did was laugh at Harry Kane. I thought, which was a little surprising, but apparently that stemmed from something that happened in the tunnel. I don't know. He is. Dizzy Dean was a baseball player, and he said it ain't bragging if you can do it, and he certainly can do it. He's probably the most talented player I've ever seen, and I don't think it's over with him. And I think even when he loses his legs, like they all do, he'll still be a dominant force well into his 30s, maybe even as long as Ronaldo if he takes care of himself and play into his 40s. So it'd be interesting to see. It's just it's tough to watch the rich get richer.
Yeah. It's just won the Champions League, and now they add like a potential Ballon d'Or winner. It's like, well,
a potential GOAT. I do wonder. I kind of do wonder. Like, it depends on what he accomplishes. Will they be talking to him like Messi or Ronaldo in 10 years? Like, has he surpassed them? Has he gotten 700 goals? Has he got? I mean, what will Kylian Mbappé be in that conversation? I think he's the best total footballer on the planet. Is that fair to say?
I don't know. I'd have to think about how I'd put there.
Under 30.
Maybe even De Bruyne taking it. For me, maybe.
De Bruyne. Would you take De Bruyne over Kylian Mbappé? Forget the age. If they're the same age, who do you take?
I think I would. Yeah. Currently, I'm taking Kevin De Bruyne.
It sounds bold to me, but I don't know if I'm in a position to. I don't know if I can match your knowledge base.
That is definitely a controversial opinion.
Yeah, it sounds bold. I'm not in a position to argue with you.
People that'll disagree with that, but I don't know.
So, starting a team with De Bruyne, if you could get him 10 years earlier, is certainly not a bad thing. But I think one of the things I'd say is this guy seemed to be competent as soon as he turned 18, one of the best players in the world. And he's been one of the best players. Like in 2018 was a long time ago when he won the World Cup. And he was one of the best players in the world then. And he just seems to keep it up. A little more of a challenge in La Liga, but I'm sure he's safe from winning another La Liga. I'm sure they're going to do that. I think it's just like Copa del Rey and Champions League where it's at, which really isn't too much of a change from where he's coming from, too. So all the best to Kylian Mbappé. I'm definitely interested in seeing what he does, and let's see it happen. Of course, you did a video. Enzo Maresca gets the Real Madrid job. Quote, "This is a dream." Oh, they all say that. That's all the crap. You're super excited about him. Who was the coach that you said most players, because it's obvious Chelsea's going for sort of more of a Spanish style. Most of the Prem's doing that, a lot of short passes. It seems to be getting shoehorned into German football as well, even in younger ages. I can attest to that. There was another coach you mentioned in your video that I guess most Chelsea FC fans were thinking about. And what was his name?
Roberto De Zerbi.
De Zerbi. And just summarize your videos. Why do you think that Maresca got it over De Zerbi, and why do you think this is the better of the two moves?
I don't know if it's necessarily the better of the two moves, if I'm quite honest. I'm quite a big fan of De Zerbi, but as far as what Chelsea were looking for, Maresca had the best defence last year in the league with Leicester, whereas De Zerbi, he's got a bit of a reputation for sometimes losing games bigger because of his gung-ho attacking style. And also Maresca worked with Pep Guardiola, and so there's probably like looking at how Arteta's doing at Arsenal and probably a bit jealous and want their own Arteta coming in. And so, yeah, the defensive record versus De Zerbi's defensive record, working with Pep, and yeah, they wanted a young, exciting manager so they could have their own, quote, Jabi Alonso project, is what they called it. And Maresca's a very, very new coach.
Do you worry about like what Schweinsteiger talked about, and everybody's just kind of trying to imitate Pep? And it seems to be sort of like a cheap way. It feels like when something gets popular, let's say an item or a toy, then you have all these other companies coming in and try to do their version of GI Joe or their version of the Power Rangers or their something like that. It kind of feels like that with Pep, that everybody's trying to get a knockoff version. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you just get Pep light? Schweinsteiger's complained about it. He's been criticized for criticizing Pep, which is not what he was saying. He's saying he was taking German identity away. Do you think that this takes English or Chelsea identity away by continuing to go with guys who are so influenced by Pep Guardiola?
As far as English football culture goes, English football culture needed it. Obviously, the Germans are successful, so you can argue, all right, maybe they don't need to change it, but England can't win for shit. So, might as well go for Pep style.
Okay, fair enough.
Chelsea go. Chelsea have sort of been in a place ever since Mourinho's second term, where they've sort of been like in a club identity crisis. They keep going through managers quickly. Sure, there's been some success there with like Tuchel and Antonio Conte, but the style seems to always be changing. And so, sure, it's probably going to be like a knockoff version of Pep, but I like that the club is finally sort of finding an identity again where, the ownership are building a squad for a certain style and they're getting a coach who plays that certain style rather than under Abramovich, especially towards the end, it was just, bring Conte in. He wins the league first year. All of a sudden, it's all going wrong second year. He's out the door. Then we'll bring in a new coach who then has different style, who then you need new players for because the guys you bought for Conte don't work for this new manager anymore. And then that guy ends up getting sacked a couple of years later. And it was just like a cycle of having to buy different players for different managers because they all played different sort of ways.
So are you saying you'll take any identity as long as they have a plan and stick to it? Is that what you're kind of saying?
As long as it's a good plan. Look at Arsenal. Arsenal went for Pep Light with Arteta, who came as his assistant manager, and they very almost beat Pep last season. It's an insane level to beat. To be fair, like any normal season, right? Arsenal win the league last year. It was just because they were up against Pep City that they didn't. over 90 points. I think they got just about 90 points. That wins the league most years before Pep joined the league. So, you look at the success of Arsenal doing that sort of thing, and that's promising. Like, that's something to strive for, right? Because as soon as Pep leaves City, you'd assume Arsenal and Arteta might take over the throne of the Premier League until someone else can challenge them.
How close are Enzo and Pep as far as relationship and style?
I don't know. I don't think they spent a lot of years together, so I don't assume there's a huge relationship there that goes back really far. But obviously, Pep respects his footballing brain to have brought him in as someone to be an assistant to him. He's spoken before a lot about his assistants. He uses them a lot where they bounce a lot of ideas off of each other. And you've seen with Arteta again, he's gone on to, do really well. You've got Vincent Kompany, who's just got the Bayern job after working with Pep. And so Maresca style-wise sure is like Pep. In my video, I talk a bit about a box midfield, which is something that's become quite popular this year. And that's something Maresca was using in the Championship. It's something that Pep and Arteta have been using this year. And so, I think there's a lot of similarities there because obviously he would have learned from Pep and they would have had a similar way of thinking about football in the first place for Pep wanting him to come in as an assistant for him.
Mm. I mean, it's like it seems like if you just stand next to the guy, you're going to get a job, especially the Vincent Company thing. Which,
At the moment, yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know. I think that's I don't know. I'm not in a position to argue about it, but it just seems like, oh, Pep, I'll take it. I'll put it on my team. It doesn't seem very wise. It seems very reactionary to me, and I really want it to be interesting. And I think if these teams are successful, it's not because they train under Pep. It's going to be because of their own talents at the end of the day, because Pep can't be there all the time. Certainly, the influence couldn't hurt. But I do worry about, and I want Vincent Company to be successful. I don't have a grudge against him. I do think that it's like, oh, Pep, let's get it. And it's just because, I think I get the feeling, especially since I've been following a lot closer the last 2 years, I don't think the boards are as sophisticated as some football manager players, to be honest with you. And just by seeing some of the moves, it seems like they look up, all right, we need a left back who's got the highest goals at the highest level. All right, we'll put it. Yeah, it seems that simple sometimes, where I think everybody has this sort of vision of them, watching tape, going to them, contacting. And I know some guys do that, but if they don't listen to them, you're never going to find a diamond in the dirt. It's just like the easy way out is just to look up the stats and, let's take the center midfielder that has the most goals that's most affordable. I think that happens more often than not. So I worry about this being sort of reactionary as well. But I mean, I couldn't, if you said I was wrong, I couldn't argue against you.
No, I think there's certainly some truth in that thinking. I just think it is one of those cases where, it can seem a bit dumb, but also it could work out like Arteta did. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, it could be one of those where it works even though it's not necessarily the most complex, like, smartest strategy in terms of finding someone new, right?
Well, I'm getting back to Mr. Mbappé, and I don't know much about the Olympics because I loathe the Olympics. I've loathed it since I was a kid. It's always been a way. It's been less about sports, and when I was a kid, it was all about basically selling the Soviets. Well, look what a great system we have. And I do remember 2012 London had it, and and it seemed to be more. I remember watching the opening games, and there was dancing, really cringe dancing about the NSA, like, oh, we have free healthcare or whatever, and it just deeply gets political, and I don't appreciate it. Appreciate the athletes. I don't. I'd rather have a World Cup than a gold medal. Just call me crazy. Mbappé not included in the Olympic squad. Shocking. He's going to be kind of busy, I would imagine. I imagine he's thinking about the Euros. That's where it's at. Don't blame him at all. And then Thierry Henry said, the last time I received so many rejections was at the university. There have not been in negotiations. You go, you ask, they say no, you leave. Thierry Henry apparently, I didn't even know this. He was the French head coach, and all the best. I love Thierry. I have his jersey back there for New York. What is the Olympics to football? Is it even necessary to have it in there? And considering the clutter of everything that's going around, Copa America, obviously the Euros. Why do it now? And who's gonna? Are they going to be B teams? What am I looking at when it comes to the Olympics? Why should I care?
You shouldn't.
Good. No, I don't feel.
Like, you look at the France team that Henry's picked. Like, I think not a single player that's going to the Euros is in that squad, which is obviously what he's on about being rejected so much, because obviously all the top first team players are going to be busy. And the Olympics is one of those things where, like, you'll see Olympic gold medal be added onto the list when someone's listing out all the things that a player's won, but no one actually gives a shit at the time that it actually happens. It's just like another number to add, like, oh yeah, Messi's won 5 Ballon d'Ors, 4 Champions Leagues, and a gold medal.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's like, It's like a CV filler, but no one actually gives a shit when
Why?
it
Why?
goes on.
And they
Really,
can't even do it in an off year. Like it seems weird that the Olympics would want to compete with the Euros or the World Cup or, um, anyway.
I
It
suppose
seems.
because football's not a really big draw for the Olympics. I
Yeah,
suppose
maybe
it's
that's
like
it.
just one of many events. So it's like, yeah, we're competing with the Euros. Who cares? Most people aren't coming to watch the football
Mhm.
in Olympics. They're there to watch like the running and
When I was
all
a
of
kid, it
that.
was illegal to be a professional and play in the Olympics. It almost seemed like we've gone back to that. The NHL has pulled out of the Olympics. I want to say the last two times. Although the rule is anybody can play as long as they make the team. But it seems like it's kind of gone back to more of an amateur status where it's a place to watch new athletes compete for the gold athlete that rather than like the dream teams of the NBA in 1992 and in 1996 we got our first look at like sort of the dream hockey teams, which is hockey's a lot more global. So like Czech Republic, Canada, United States, Russia, they're good. You're getting real competition. I can't stand the Olympics, and I'm glad you said it's okay not to care. But good luck to Thierry Henry. Uh, of course, we'd be remiss. I didn't know I had ad block on. If we didn't talk about the Champions League victory, it's something you noticed during the watch along. I think anybody can say, even though it was 0-0, that Dortmund won the first half. Um, their chances seem better. But you also said that the chances they had that they didn't finish on, it did feel like it was going to come to bite in the ass, and certainly a 2-0 victory at the end. You noticed that the coach for Real Madrid in the second half gave Dortmund the ball and let them come at them. And they decided to kind of play Dortmund's game and move through transition, which they successfully converted on twice. Are we sure that's exactly what happened? But sure looked it. And was Dortmund just completely outcoached? I mean, what happened here in that game?
I don't know if I'd say out coached. I think it's just more out talented, right? We all knew Real Madrid were going to be the better team going into that
Yeah,
by
but they were
far on
I
paper.
minus the finishing. They were dominated in the first half, and they did it with
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, and the yellow brick wall held up. But the last thing they expected was like, all right, no, we'll play back, and you use your because wait a minute, oh, you don't have the offensive firepower we have, and then they took advantage of that with obviously guys like Vinicius and they're Bellingham, they're super duper fast, and
Yeah.
it just seemed like a brilliant move. Like I don't think Dortmund was expecting it at all. They seem to be like killing it,
Yeah, because you watch them in the first half, they got a lot of chances from exactly that. It was like Karim Adeyemi making runs in behind and Fulkrug making runs in behind, like really quickly, just launching the ball up to them and getting in behind. And that's obviously where they were getting a lot of chances in that first half, almost scoring multiple times. And then, yeah, you saw that sort of shift from Real Madrid in the second half, which is why I say it was not necessarily out coached, I guess, because Terzic got his game plan completely right in the first half. That's exactly what they needed to play. But when Real Madrid decided to shift and sort of try and play that sort of themselves, because we saw in the prior rounds, Dortmund's strength really came from defending, like against PSG, was defending deep, just really holding on and then breaking really quickly and stealing goals from like fast breaks. And obviously, Real Madrid stopped them from being able to do that by sitting back themselves a bit more and sort of letting them have the ball a bit more, which then sort of nullified all of their strengths. And so I'm not sure how much else Terzic could have done there from a coaching standpoint, because it was like their best opportunities were going to come from quick counterattacks, and Real Madrid just recognised that, switched at half time, stopped their ability to take those counterattacks, and then it was a case of they just don't have the talent necessary to break up Real Madrid's defence when you just let them have the ball and say, look, you got to face us, you got to try and, move us about and try and make an opening for yourself rather than relying on us pushing forward
Mhm.
and then you just running behind.
That's why I'd say out coaching, because it takes a ballsy move to change a dramatic. That's a pretty dramatic change, and you saw it immediately. All of a sudden, Dortmund had the ball. All of a sudden, Dortmund had their center backs over the midfield line looking for openings, which they clearly couldn't do as well as Real Madrid. The other thing is, I think it showed a real respect for the defense on Dortmund. I mean, they obviously decided they couldn't penetrate it, or at least this would be an easier route to put it in the back of the net. So that's kind of why I say out coach. I think that's a ballsy move, and a very interesting one. I wish I'd have foreseen it. I would have been a genius. Vinicius named player of the season as Real Madrid sweep the Champions League. Player of the season in what?
The Champions League, I'd assume.
Champions League. Oh, okay. Yeah, clearly he was. Yeah, I think I'm not going to argue this. I mean, he was definitely the best player in the probably the best player in the game. He's making things happen. He got the final finish. Annoying guy, but really good. That's really all I got to say about him.
The other thing is that probably makes him the favorite, like out and out favorite now
for the Ballon d'Or. Okay, that's why this.
You'd assume Brazil will do well in the Copa America this summer.
Yeah.
Which basically will lock it up for him unless like Brazil sort of collapse a bit and Bellingham's the best player on an England Euros.
They're not what they used to be, Brazil. It's not the same Brazil. It seems like ever since Kaká left, that they're not the dominant force. And of course the drumming they took in 2014. I don't fear Brazil like I did prior to 2014.
Oh yeah, certainly. They're not as good, but I think if they make the final, I think that is enough for them Vinicius to easily seal this up. Unless Bellingham is like the best player on a Euro winning England, then I think that's the only thing that stops Vinicius now.
I think that's what I took away from the thing. I think I got a new respect for Bellingham. He's not afraid to get dirty. He's not afraid to drop back. He's not afraid to make a emergency tackle. I really got to see maybe I just missed it. Really, the diversity of his play. For Real Madrid, he really is quite a player, and then he's a playmaker, and of course he's a great finisher. He impressed me in a lot of ways, and it was really cool. They showed him coming out in a suit and tie before the match and just kind of taking the whole thing in, and that's a really. But my man got the finish. Bellingham was probably a bit more quiet. He didn't have one of the goals, did he? No, I don't think he did.
I think he assisted one of them.
Yeah, he did have assist. Maybe a bit more quiet than I think, but I mean, there's so much talent there. Only so many goals can be scored a game. Gareth Southgate says supposedly sends a warning to Bellingham. I guess worrying about a Jack Grealish situation, because we heard this last summer after Grealish won. Hey, chill, back it up in gear. How well do you know Bellingham? Is he the type of guy that can flip it off and get back in it, get back in this mindset? I do worry that that's what kind of happened with Leverkusen after they won the league, that they maybe downshifted a little bit, and that may have played a role in them losing the Europa League. Do you expect Bellingham to be affected by the celebrations and parties and stuff like that? And was it right for Southgate to say, hey, check yourself?
I think it's right for Southgate to do that, as he's trying to coach his national team to winning a huge tournament, and so you as the coach, you want to step in and make sure that he doesn't go too hard, because he's one of your best players, right? You want him fully focused on the Euros now. But I think he is the type of guy to be able to just step away from the celebrations and just be straight into the mode of playing hard and trying to win again. He's got that very mature professionalism about him. Whenever you watch him in interviews and stuff like that, people always make jokes saying he's like an industry plant and he's got everything for PR. he's just got that about him where he's just very professional, mature
Yeah.
in front of the cameras, and so I think he is that type of guy that he won't necessarily get absolutely wankered after winning the Champions League, because he's going to be focusing on the Euros, because he's going to want to win that, because obviously, as we just said, the Ballon d'Or could be his if he wins the Euros, and so I think he's going to be the type of guy that's in the mindset of, look, I got to be fully ready for this Euro so I can smash it and hopefully get the glory for my career, sort of thing.
What's this sound? Jose Mourinho, Fenerbahce. They're going insane. No, we talked about this a little. We follow Mourinho because I think me and you both like him. Looked very stiff right there. He said that this New Jersey is his skin. I guess it's kind of tough for me to see him. I don't want to take anything away the Turkish league or Fenerbahce. They produce great players. You know, the better they are, they usually find their ways in the bigger leagues. Fenerbahce is a great European side. So is Galatasaray. Interesting to bring a guy like Mourinho in there. Is this sad to you? Do you think he should retire, or the fact that he has to take a step down? Even after bringing a team to the end of the was it Europa or Conference last year? Europa.
Europa League.
Yeah,
Europa. Made the final.
Yeah, Europa League made the final, and I thought that might be a way for him to step in the Big Five, but it didn't. It didn't work out for him. There's obviously people at the top think he's washed. I don't know. It's kind of sad for me. I always like the guy. Get a kick out of him. You're not going to get a lot of press out of him over the year. This is. I feel like I'm saying goodbye. What are you thinking?
I don't know. I don't think it's that sad, to be honest. I think, this is the club that he's going to be worshipped at. You saw all the photos of like everyone just swarming him. He looked like a world leader or something, like in North Korea, being surrounded by all these people, going amongst men. But another thing is, he can still get a lot of glory out there. Like, sure. I know Fenerbahce club, they haven't won the league for quite a while, despite being one of the top sides in Turkey for forever, right? Mm. And so if he can step in and he can win a title, it'll be their first in 10 years, I think. Mm. So that'll be a big achievement for him. Another thing to add to his legacy, another fan base that are going to absolutely adore him if he wins that. I don't see it as that sad. Like, sure, he's not at the very top anymore, but it's still a good level. There's still a lot of glory to be had for Jose Mourinho, and there's still a lot more he can add to, his story, his career. I think this is a cool step for Mourinho at this point of his career.
Okay, well, fair enough. Moving to this, I found this bizarre. I wonder if this is just like I usually don't do rumors. Maybe you can shed some light why this even came up, or just tell me if you think this is just filler. Lewandowski denies report he could join Mourinho at Fenerbahce. Where did this come from? I mean, he just announced. I heard earlier he was going to MLS early in the year, and then he changed his mind. He wanted to stay with Barcelona. Why would this happen? Or is this just reporters making stuff up, which happens, I think, a lot, especially when it comes to transfers, to get attention?
Yeah, it's probably the latter, I think, because obviously Jose Mourinho is coming in at Fenerbahce. That's a big enough story in like the sense that a lot of people still follow Mourinho's career.
Yeah.
And so automatically it's going to be easy clicks, right? You put this another big name at Lewandowski, which, as was spoken in the past, Barca might want rid for like financial reasons. And so, you say, Lewandowski to join Mourinho at Fenerbahce, people are going to be like, oh, that's
are you
cool.
saying Barcelona put this rumor out there?
I wouldn't put it past them if they weren't rid, I think it's an easy thing to do, right? Is like, big name guy that potentially his club want out, and Mourinho, put them together. People are going to click on that, right?
Yeah, I suppose. I just think about the way Barcelona, or the way they congratulated Messi. I don't know if you saw that press release for going to Inter Miami, and it was really just a bunch of is a low blow, really sarcastic type of thing, because apparently he wanted Messi back at the time. Maybe you shouldn't let him go then. I don't know. You know, he, you saw Messi's reaction when he went to PSG and the reaction when he left. If you probably treated him a little better, he may have came back for a year or two before going to MLS. Messi just destroying MLS, by the way, if anybody's been paying any attention to that. And that brings me to not so much an MLS story. I actually missed this game because everything was going on with the Champions League. I got tired. I had to stay up late for these. Pachuca, with the very young squad, more than handled a Columbus squad, which is really, they don't really vie for winning the league, but they do so well in the playoffs, and in the States, winning the playoffs is the true championship, not winning the league. Even though winning the league is much harder to do. It's just the way American sports culture is. Pachuca absolutely destroyed Columbus. I did watch the highlights. They were never in this game, and it's really quite sad. I listened to what was it, MLS clips, or is a guy he was angry that obviously MLS, because this is MLS versus Liga MX, and the only team to really overcome them was Seattle a couple years ago. They'll find themselves in the Club World Cup, which is probably going to be a disaster anyway. And this is a chance for Columbus to go, one of the bigger clubs in the States, one of the better followed clubs in the States, to go in there, and they failed. Yeah, MLS moves. Yeah, he seems to think the solution to our problems is to just let the MLS teams go ham and loosen the salary cap, loosen some of the financial protections, which is exactly what folded the NASL, which is why it was put into MLS, because MLS is not, they're not quick to go, okay, no more DPs, you sign who you sign, because they don't want a top heavy league like they have in Europe. And it'll probably, what happened with the Cosmos is all the great players were there. The league got top heavy. They still didn't win all the championships, strangely enough. And next thing you know, people are trying to sell their franchises. It destroyed the league. That and over expansion. And now we're in a case where we're damn near 30 teams in the league. I disagree heavily with that. I think he's young, and he thinks if MLS is just like Europe, will be taken seriously. I got news for you. You're never going to be taken seriously in Europe. When Europeans see Americans, Chinese, and Saudis getting involved, they hate them because they're afraid they're going to take away the best leagues with a bigger economy. And I don't think just MLS going crazy. I just don't think they have the infrastructure of fans to support something like this. But I have to admit, this is pretty disappointing, and I would have expected a better outcome. Pachuca's really solid side in Mexico, and Mexico, the Liga MX is still slightly better. But it is weird that we can beat their national team every All-Star game, which is it's going to be Liga MX versus it's going to be Liga MX versus MLS. We usually dominate them in that whenever we play them there. We beat them on the national front, but the clubs, we're just not there yet. Any suggestion besides opening the books, and just letting everybody spend like crazy, which is just, it smells like disaster to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, because obviously you talk about how the USA win on the national stage, but then obviously you look at the US team that plays against Mexico on that level, and almost all of them play in Europe.
Yeah.
There's no MLS guys there.
No, there's not.
So obviously when the MLS clubs play the Mexican clubs, there is going to be Mexican nationals in those club sides, but none of them from the US national team are there. So I don't know. It's a tough one, because how do you keep talent like that in the league? I'm not sure how you do that, because if you're a good enough player to play in Europe, why are you going to pick the MLS over Europe?
Yeah, and I don't want you to, especially if you're American. I want you to play in Europe because you need that experience to play these guys in big tournaments like Copa America, the World Cup. So I don't
And
even
that's
want
why
you
the
there.
national team is good, because obviously the team is made up with guys who play in Europe and have the higher level of experience,
Yeah,
and they're getting better and better, and that's why the national team is getting better and better. But
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It kind of sucks for MLS clubs where you
yeah.
can't keep the talent there as
No.
such.
But so we can't keep the talent in Belgium. You can't keep the talent in the Netherlands. You can't keep the talent. I that's the way I see it. You know, like I think the mission to make MLS on par with the Prem is a futile battle. I don't think it's wise. I think we could spend ourselves into bankruptcy attempting to do it. Um, and we talk about the Chinese Superliga that was supposed to take over, right? Because they're a big economy. That didn't happen. The Saudi league's top heavy. I don't think that lasts. I think it goes the way of as soon as Ronaldo's gone, I think they all leave with him. Um, I like the idea. MLS is still here because they've decided to grow it incrementally. That
Yeah,
may, if MLS is a big league, I think it'll be long after I'm dead. And that's fine because I like watching MLS because I never know who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. There's cool stories every year if you follow the league. If you root for the badge and not look at it like trying to compete with the Prem, it can be really fun. If you look at it like, oh, we don't have the best players in the world. Well, neither does Belgium, and they have a really good league too. I think to be the best developmental league on the planet would be a much more obtainable goal and completely reasonable goal than it would be let's start selling Serie A and stuff like that. I think that's just it's a dragon, and if you catch it, you probably be catching bankruptcy. That's the way I feel about it. That being said, like when we start beating their clubs regularly, which I don't think we're more than 10 years off from. I mean, it's getting closer and closer all the time. I don't think that the Mexican I don't think the Mexican league is going to grow any more than it is. I don't think the players they have, and that's another team. They have the same problem. If their players any good, they play in Europe. You know, you know, and they're one of the reasons they're able to keep more Mexican players from going to Europe is because they can put out so much money, and because it's a bigger league. But I think competing with the Liga MX growing incrementally is a much more healthy system. I don't want to see a situation. When I first moved to Europe in 2005, that's one of the reasons Red Bull, I think, was kind of welcomed in to change the Metro Stars. One guy bought 6 teams and built them and changed, got rid of all the Americanized rules and made it look more like world football, and maybe to gain more respect. And I think it's a damn good league. But I think you got to look at it like, is this entertaining football? Check. Is it the best in the world? No. But it's not going to be any more than it's going to be in a developmental league in Portugal, And I think going after those leagues and Mexico is, and first of all, like overcoming Mexico is a kind of a cool storyline. That's the derbies you got to build. Is you're not going to build a derby with England. You can build a derby with Mexico. They're on your border. I think that's a much wiser move. And that's all I got. Because I have, I lost my team, and it's because they spent too much money, and then Atari fell apart. The old console, lightning struck, and then Pele left, and the league fell apart. Even mighty Franz Beckenbauer couldn't hold it together. Even though he won a world championship when he left, and I think that could easily happen. It almost happened to MLS, and incremental growth is what they should do. What they should do. And be entertaining. In a lot of ways, I think MLS is more entertaining than the leagues over here because I know Man City's going to be at the end. I know Inter and AC Milan. I know it's a Liga is going to be going up against Barcelona. I don't know about MLS. I mean, look at Orlando. They looked like they were going to really vie for it. They've turned it around recently, but they're not even in the running for the league anymore. It's really a battle between Ohio, Inter Miami, maybe the New York teams, and LAFC. So, yeah, that's all I got.
I agree with that strategy, to be honest. Yeah. I think you've seen it in some countries where instead of investing necessarily on the clubs being able to buy more players, maybe you invest the money more on scouting departments and building up the training facilities.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Because, like, I know Iceland quite famously did this. They spent a lot of money in building new, like, training facilities and, like, places that kids could go and play more, and, like, spent more money on, like, the coaching, like, improving the coaching in the country. And, like, 10 years after they'd started this, like, plan,
Mhm.
was when Iceland all of a sudden started to make the Euros, went on that really good run where they ended up losing to France, but they, like, shocked everyone, like, "Oh, this tiny country, Iceland, all of a sudden
Mhm.
producing good players and doing really well." And that was because they were focusing on building up the, like, internal structures in the country to improve the amount, like, the younger kids coming through, so you have better players. And maybe that's the what the MLS needs to do, is they focus more on spending on building up more American young players
Mhm.
rather than getting the stars in. So
Mhm.
obviously you still have, like, the older guys coming in like you do now, so you still have the names to draw
Yeah,
people to the league.
I'm fine with
But
that.
you also focus on building up younger American players so that you have better generations coming through. And if you're better players coming through each club, then they're going to be a better destination for young players worldwide, because you're going to have this, like, program where it's like, look, we give all these young players play time, we develop them well, and they end up going to really good teams in Europe.
Mhm.
Then more people are likely to be like, oh, that's a good step for my career. I'll go to the MLS
Mhm.
where they're quite good at developing younger players, and it will be good for my career
Sure.
before I then make the step to, like, a
Sure.
big European club.
I think that'd be great. That's really the way to go. And I also think they really ought to find a way to, not just get the rich kids away in there. I think, especially with the advent of I Show Speed, who's a really famous African American. Let's start selling this game to the inner city, and just widen the pool. Let's sell it to the working class. Widen the pool. It's supposed to be a working class game. In the States, it's not. And I think that would, if you can get those kind of facilities in there and they can be taken advantage of, like, just widen the pool. Guys that are, going to graduate from some great university, that's great if you can get them in. But I mean, let's get your average Joe in there and sell him the game. And I think that'd probably show its benefits, sort of like maybe it did in Iceland. That's all I got for you. Glory Hunters is a community project. We do all sorts of. You can do your own team here. Join our Discord, earn our trust, and you can start doing rant videos. The Over the Bar guys are doing it, and Green Man talked about doing something. And we're also coming out with a series of who we think the more interesting teams are for the Euros. We'll be releasing that pretty soon, trying to organize that. And thank you very much. Anything else before we say goodbye? Or?
Watch the new video that I made and subscribe to the channel, I suppose.
There you go. Slide, likes, every little thing helps. So we'll see you very soon.